The following podcast contains alcohol-enhanced conversations about alcohol, as well as a potential for discussions about other topics of dubious, disturbing, possibly offensive, but usually hilarious interest. The opinions stated herein are solely of the person stating them, and any endorsement of these opinions by any other party is not implied. Foul language is likely, but intolerant viewpoints are not. Listener intoxication is advised. Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of the Whiskey Tangent Podcast. I'm Scott.
And I'm Ed.
And tonight we thought we'd stay in the era of whiskey coming to America that we highlighted on our last podcast.
For July 4th.
The American founding fathers and their relationship with whiskey. And we are going to highlight two whiskey founding fathers. That is, gentlemen who distilled whiskey in the Revolutionary era. And Ed is going to tell you who they are.
Right, so we thought it'd be great to highlight two whiskeys named after Elijah Craig, small batch, 1789, and Evan Williams, small batch, 1783. And they happen to be made by the same distillery.
Heaven Hill Distillery, which we talked about in episode 3 when we went to the whiskey tasting. And they had a woman there who had 5 or 6 whiskeys and the magic booklet that the old woman...
the wizened, strong old woman kept for us.
And
I have
we
it on
still
my lap
have
right
it.
now. I'm looking through right now what we're talking about it.
That's
Even
right.
though I've done my research, it's hard not to flip through it. It's so informative.
That's right. So do you want to talk about the whiskeys first, or do you want to go through the history
Well,
of Heaven Hill?
First of all, I want to say that Emily, who was the area manager for New Jersey for Heaven Hill, who we met at the whiskey tasting,
Very knowledgeable.
very knowledgeable, wonderful person. We talked a lot about Elijah Craig, and we talked about Larceny, and I think it's Bernheim, which is a wheat whiskey, and some of the older Elijah Craigs that we've never tried. And also something that is getting a lot of hype right now is Henry McKenna 10-year, which...
It's very good. I got one for my 50th birthday.
I didn't drink any of that.
Oh, you did.
I did not drink any of
You
that.
forgot.
We'll talk
There's no way that you didn't
We'll
have
talk-
some of it. I had a
I-
whole bottle of it here.
We'll talk about it later, but I never tried that in my life.
We will talk about this later.
We'll talk about this when we're done podcasting, because I don't know how you had a whole bottle of Henry McKenna. I never had it. But anyway, so... We've talked about Henry Hill before.
Heaven Hill.
Well, Henry Hill was
Henry Hill
he was a mobster from Goodfellas.
He was a good fella, right?
Yeah, he's a good fella, Henry Hill. But we're talking about Heaven Hill.
He was a good fella.
Henry Hill was. Yeah, get your shine box.
What, am I funny? Am I a clown? Am I here for your fucking amusement? Is that what I am?
You know what you said. So anyway, what's interesting about Heaven Hill Distillery, they're not owned by a big conglomerate. They are owned by a single private family, and they have been since 1935.
The Heaven family who live on a hill?
They were founded right after the repeal of Prohibition in 1935.
Don't ignore me.
I'm trying to ignore you. Because Scott knows, as I do, that the most interesting thing about Heaven Hill is that they brought in a master distiller from a rival distillery, actually. The Jim Beam family, all right, have provided the master distiller for Heaven Hill for their entire history. Parker Beam began working at Heaven Hill Distillery in 1960 alongside his father, Earl, who was, at the time, the master distiller when the company was founded in 1935. So Parker Beam passed away in 2017, okay? So now, I'm not sure exactly who is the master distiller at this point.
It doesn't say in the magic booklet?
It has some names listed. I feel like it's kind of like a running back by committee type of situation.
Right.
But think about this. From 1935 until 2017, it was 2 guys who were the master distiller of Heaven Hill, father and son. That's just extraordinary consistency for a distillery. Now, the Elijah Craig and the Evan Williams.
Right.
So Elijah Craig whiskey is offered in both small batch and single barrel bottlings. The small batch variation, which we're drinking today, is, I think, a very complex flavor. Scott and I disagree with how much I love it and he loves it.
I've said this before. I always dismiss the Elijah Craig, and then I taste it and I like it. And then after I have something else, I'm like, well, it wasn't that great. And then Ed is always here to remind me
pisses
that
me
it
off.
actually was pretty good.
It's won a lot of whiskey tastes.
It doesn't stick with me for some reason, and I don't really know why. Because I do enjoy it. I do.
I mean, I liked it better when it was $28 and nobody knew about it. But I feel like now it's $35.
Man, that happens a lot. Like
The half
something wins
gallon?
an award, and then suddenly,
Well, they give awards like
I know.
like Russian generals give awards
like
to each other.
pedophiles give out candy.
Damn. Where the hell did that come from?
Sorry.
Anyway, so many times we brought Elijah Craig to a whiskey tasting, and I mean Basil Hayden, Woodford Reserve's really good bourbons in the house, and it has done well. But here's the counter to that. It's becoming more popular, and the half gallon was $63.99 today in my store. Next to it was the Bullet Rye and the Bullet Bourbon for $49.99. I'm sorry, I can't put Elijah Craig $15 more than Bullet Bourbon. Scott and I have a whole price matrix that we're still working on and fine tuning. I mean, I said we, but it's actually his. But I'm taking half credit for it, but it's his. But it'll say the Hurd Steinmetz Matrix, but it's really his. So
That's why my name's first.
right, it's a Hurd Steinmetz Matrix.
Hurd, it rhymes with nerd.
Right, he came up with it, but he needs me to help balance his opinions on whiskey. Like Elijah, he was going to give this like an 8.
I was going to give it a 7.
Yeah, you're out of your fucking mind with a 7. This I gave it an 8.5.
Right. So we came together and gave it an 8, didn't we? Or whatever. We'll look later. It's fine.
I think
No
I
one
beat him
cares.
up to an 8.5 because, to be honest,
I think you did. You did. You bludgeoned me.
It's not quite as good as Basil Hayden and Woodford, but I feel like it's running right with those two. It's got some real good complex flavors.
Well, if you remember the whiskey tasting that I had at my house before I moved last summer,
I do remember.
just about a year ago,
Yep.
Elijah Craig came in second, behind our favorite Bullet Rye,
Right.
over Woodford,
Over Woodford.
over a lot of
Woodford,
favorites,
yep, yep.
over Angel's Envy Bourbon,
Yep.
over High West Double Rye, Four Roses Single Barrel, the Hill Rock.
The Hill Rock's $100. It's a delicious, really high-level whiskey,
Right.
and it lost to two $35 bottle of whiskeys, Elijah Craig and Bullet.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were tasting.
was
so it was
blind.
double blind. So again, I'm always surprised at how good Elijah Craig is when I taste it. And for the price of it, even though, as Ed said, it's been creeping up because people have been starting to realize how good it is.
Yeah, it was legit 32 for a long time. Now,
Yeah.
36, that's $4 more.
And
up.
it's still very good.
Yeah.
So Elijah Craig was born in 1738 in Orange County, Virginia, an area that eventually became Kentucky because Virginia was very large at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. In 1764, at the age of 26, he became a Baptist preacher, along with 2 of his brothers. Although religious, he was a bit of a rebel, and by 1771, he'd been jailed at least twice for preaching without a license from the Anglican Church. Now,
Wow, that's a thing?
yeah, well, remember, this was pre-Revolutionary America when the Church of England and the English monarchy
Right.
were basically one and the same.
True.
But even after gaining independence from England after the war, and even after the religious freedoms that were enacted in Virginia at the time, Baptists in particular were still persecuted, in part because they would preach to anybody, including mixed congregation of freemen and slaves.
Oh, wow.
Baptists, in fact, encouraged plantation owners to free their slaves, and many did. But eventually, Baptists later relented to the increasingly widespread practice of slavery in the South, and instead focused on getting slave owners to uphold their Christian values toward the goal of making the lives of slaves better. By the time he was 50, Elijah Craig, in the year 1788, had been busy doing all the things. Listen to this list. He purchased 1,000 acres of land and founded the city of Lebanon, which changed its name to Georgetown after the Revolution in honor of George Washington. He built and became the pastor of the new Baptist church. He had established Kentucky's first classical school, which taught Greek, Latin, and the sciences that eventually became Georgetown College in Kentucky, which is still around today. And he built Kentucky's first lumber mill, first paper mill, first hemp rope factory, and first cloth manufacturing.
Well, there you go.
However, the reason we're even talking about him today is that in 1789, when he was 51, Ed's age, he founded a distillery in Fayette County, Virginia, now called Scott County, Kentucky. And the only reason I mention it is because it's Scott County.
Scott County.
That's right. Because of his other accomplishments, he is now often cited as the inventor of bourbon, as well as the first person to age the spirit in a charred oak barrel. However, these claims are hotly disputed because there's good evidence that dozens of distillers had already been creating a corn-based spirit that was being called bourbon to distinguish it from rye by the time that Bourbon County itself was formed in 1785, which is 4 years before Elijah was even distilling. So calling him the father of bourbon, like the father of bourbon, is incorrect. One of the founding fathers? Absolutely.
Well, their quote on the website says he didn't join the bourbon movement, he started it.
No, incorrect. As for the barrel aging, there is no evidence to suggest that he or anybody else was distilling bourbon any differently than anyone at the time, which is to say not aging it in charred oak barrels. Later in life, he ran a plantation of over 4,000 acres and even opened a retail store in nearby Frankfort. Elijah Craig died in Georgetown, Kentucky. By then, it had become a state.
Okay.
In 1808, a rich and prosperous man at the age of 70.
Wow, he only lived to 70 and did all that.
Yeah, he was an accomplished man.
All right, then. So
So, Evan Williams,
yes.
what do we think of it?
Very interesting experience because when we first poured it, I didn't really like it. I was like, wow, compared to the Elijah Craig, I found it to be a little harsh.
Yeah.
However, like we talk about on one of our shorts, water and ice does change the expression of the spirit. And as it sat with the ice, I felt like it opened up some flavors that I hadn't initially appreciated. And I liked it a lot better, probably by my third and fourth sip than I did on my first. Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I thought it was okay when I got it. I was a little disappointed by it. I thought it was going to be better. But as it sat in the ice, and then, whoa, this is actually pretty good.
It changed.
And it kind of holds up. I'm not going to say it's better than Elijah Craig.
It's
even with me and my Elijah Craig bias, it's not better than Elijah Craig. But it's a small batch, just like Elijah Craig is. It's proofed to a lower level, 86, and it's the same mash bill. So the only difference is whatever the master distiller is deciding that Evan Williams small batch 1783 should taste like.
Well, I think it's important to note that the mash bill for Heaven Hill is very, very interesting because it seems like no matter what they put into a bottle, except when you get into their wheat whiskey or their wheated bourbons, every bourbon that they have is the exact same mash bill. So it's 78 corn, 10% rye, and then 12% barley.
All of them.
All of them are exactly the same.
Crazy.
Barrel char level number 3, and their barrel entry proof, like what the proof is when they put it in the barrel, is exactly the same for whatever Evan Williams or Elijah Craig you come across, and even their flagship brand, the Heaven Hill.
That's very interesting. So really,
very unique for such different tasting whiskeys to be the exact same mash bill. And we've talked about it on this podcast a lot, how you proof it, and by the way that you age it, makes all the difference in the world.
So they're sort of like controlling the variables and letting how long they age it and where they age it in the warehouse determine almost everything about the taste. I just find that fascinating. Okay, so Evan Williams, the man, let's talk about him for a minute.
Please.
And there are many similarities between him and Elijah Craig, almost uncanny. So Evan Williams was not born in America. He was an immigrant. So he was born in the tiny hamlet of Dale in Pembrokeshire, part of Wales, in 1755. So he was about 17 years younger than Elijah Craig. As a boy, he always dreamt of sailing across the ocean to the New World. And in 1780, at the age of 25, he did just that, eventually settling nearly the same area of Virginia where Elijah Craig had already been living. Now, Evan started out as a homestead farmer, but eventually, almost as if he was in competition of a person he'd probably never met yet, Elijah Craig, he would also do all the things. He was a stonemason, a building contractor, a harbor master, an inventor, a businessman, a civil leader, and of course, a distiller. He set up his distillery on the banks of the Ohio River in Louisville in 1783, which is why 1783 is on the bottle of bourbon that bears his name. He started distilling 6 years before Elijah Craig did, and there's even a plaque on the spot of his original distillery today that declares him as Kentucky's first commercial distiller. Now, as with most things whiskey from this era, this probably wasn't completely true, but I think the word commercial here might be key. Because even though there were people distilling whiskey before 1783 in Kentucky, there weren't people necessarily selling it.
Oh, okay.
And he's also sometimes known as Kentucky's first licensed distiller. So he was sort of an outspoken and controversial guy. He was a
Okay.
city trustee, and legend has it that he was known to bring a jug of whiskey to town meetings where it was, of course, promptly confiscated because that was inappropriate. However, later when the jug was returned to him, it was always empty, which might be how he was so successful at his various other business ventures. Because by 1801, there are federal license documents from the era attesting to the fact that he owned at least 3 whiskey stills at his distillery, which combined were capable of producing 360 gallons of whiskey at a time. And in 1810, just 2 years after Elijah Craig, Evan Williams died. Also, a rich and prosperous man at the age of 55.
He was young, yeah.
He was. So it's funny that these two guys were living in the same area, distilling whiskey at the same time. I wonder if they knew each other.
They had to know each other, don't you think?
Or if they ever met. I mean, they must have
They
at
must
least
have.
they must have at least known about each other. Oh my god.
Damn it, that's the second time I've done that.
Jesus.
Damn. I've spilled water twice today with my big giant bear paws. But I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more crotchety and curmudgeonous and temper-filled.
Yes.
I have some stories for the last couple weeks where I'm a little concerned that I'm losing patience with the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Right there with you, bro.
First, my smaller story. Today, I wanted to get a pedicure. Now, listen, guys, I understand that seems to go into the face of drinking whiskey, which is a nice, big, burly, manly thing to do shots of whiskey and then cut a tree down and build America. But about 8 to 10 years ago, I had my first pedicure. I was talked into it, and the ladies are keeping this a secret from us. But it wasn't easy, okay? So I go into a place, and I don't know if they really have an hour wait or they just don't want to touch my big, giant Fred Flintstone feet. You never really know because they kind of like make up their own rules. They look at you like, no, they're busy. So then I go to another place. Can you come back in an hour? And I'm with somebody else who wanted a manicure and a pedicure. So I'm like, yeah, all right, we'll make an appointment. I'll come back at 11:30. And they're like, okay, good. And then they turn to the person with like, you come back at 12:30. I'm like, yo, I just said I can't do this. I walked out. I'm like, what? How is that working for you? What do you think? We're going to come in stages to your place? Like either you have an appointment for both of us or one. So that's my small story. Second story, I'm driving over to Scott's and we're in this intersection. It looks like the intersection in, what's that movie with Tom Hanks when he's on the island?
Oh, Castaway.
Yeah. At the end of Castaway, they're at the intersection that you can see for like 10 miles in every direction, remember?
Right, there's nobody there. Right.
So I'm behind this car and we stop at that type of an intersection. I can see 5 miles in every direction. There is nobody coming. They come to a complete stop. They sit there for a count of 1001. 1002, 1003, and then they slowly turn right, which is the direction I want to go. And I'm behind them going, what the hell is wrong with you? What are you doing right now? Like, why are you in my way? Why are you alive on my planet? What is your purpose right now? Like, why would you take so long to ascertain that you can make the right turn? They came to a complete stop for all the police officers who listened to us, to my good friend in Arizona, Bob, you know who you are. A tremendous supporter of the Whiskey Tantrum podcast. I respect the law and order. I understand coming to a complete stop, letting the car rock back on itself before moving forward. This car was sitting there parked for about 2 seconds before it decided to make a damn right turn. And I know everyone listening at home, it's 3 seconds of your life, Ed. Get over it. I know. You're right. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, in that 3 seconds time, I was at another level. I wanted to jump out of the car, cut their car off when it turned, jump onto their hood,
Mm-hmm.
punch through the windshield,
Mm-hmm.
pull them out of their own car, and
Mm-hmm.
then ask them politely, what's your problem?
I wouldn't have asked them politely. I would have screamed cunt in their
Right.
face.
Now, my third story is I'm in Walmart. I have 2 packs of socks in my hand. And good. That sounds good. So I have 2 packs of socks and a pack of baby wipes for my granddaughter. I walk up to check out. Now this is Walmart. There's like 15 registers. 2 are open. It is 3:30 in the afternoon. There's 2 lines to check out, and there is a check out yourself line. Now you would think me with 2 packs of socks and baby wipes that that's what I would choose. I look at it, there's 9 people lined up waiting to go into it, which means not all of them are working. There's probably like 2 working. So I'm like, all right, that's a nightmare. I'm not going over there. In front of me is one woman with a chihuahua in the cart, and she's on the phone. All those elements are a nightmare to me. They're all a warning sign not to get in that line. But I am behind her, a nice old couple with about 20 items, and this weird guy with mismatching clothes and a weird baseball cap. And his cart is about as stuffed as it can be. So
He's buying all the things.
Right. He's buying everything from Walmart. And I'm fourth. I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, you know what? I only have to deal with his annoying order. Everybody else should be out of the way. The woman in the front with the phone talking loudly and the damn dog, she's almost done. So I'm chill. So then a second woman joins the first woman with like 10 items. Like she was like out shopping while this woman was holding the place in line. And she got back late. Now I got 25 items in front of me with her. All the people in line look at each other like, wow, that was kind of a violation. But we're like, whatever. I look around. The self-checkout has not moved. And the other line has not moved. I still feel like I'm doing good. Now we have the old couple. They have about 20 items. They get rung up real quick. So they have to pay. Now, for anybody over the age of 60 who's retired, let me give you a message. You have all day to drive, to buy stuff, to be out. All right? By 3 o'clock, be playing shuffleboard somewhere. Listen, I'm 51. I'm going to be with you soon. I guarantee you I'm not going to be in Walmart in other people's way at 3:30.
I'm going to be home drinking whiskey.
Damn right.
At the home with you and Gabe and Sergio and
Right.
Joe.
Whatever that amazing whiskey old folks home
Yeah.
for whiskey drinkers.
Oh my God, that's what we should do.
We should definitely do that.
Whiskey old folks home.
All right, write that down.
I'm writing that down right now.
All right. She's swiping the card and swiping the card. And he's like, nah, it's not coming up. She swipes it again. And then he goes, wait, is there a chip? She goes, I don't know. And then he goes, oh, there's a chip. You have to insert it.
How does she not know there's a chip?
It's her first.
It's 2019. It's not her first. No.
It's her first day at Walmart and her first day in America.
No.
It is. She's 90 years old or whatever, and it's her first day.
Impossible.
Well, she wasn't 90. She was like 75. Like she should be functionally old, not 95, which is like decrepit.
Right. Forgivably old. Right. There's functionally old and there's forgivably old.
She's functionally old. Yeah. The husband looks like he knows what's going on, but she's like swiping away. He reaches over, reverses it, and stuffs it in the slot. And then this is what I hear her say. It says, do I want cash back? Really? Is this your first time using a fucking debit card in the store, lady?
So infuriating.
All right. They invented these like literally 15 to 20 years ago. It says I want cash back. What do I do? I'm not saying anything, right? I'm not saying anything. I'm chilling out, but I'm starting to feel it. So my first instinct is drop your shit and leave. None of it is essential. But then I go like, for some reason, and that's what I would have done. And that's what I think and most of you would have done. Like just drop. It's not essential. I don't need it today. I'm buying socks and baby wipes. There's 10 places with baby wipes between me and home if I feel like it's essential, and I don't need socks right now. I'm just being proactive. But for some reason, and I can't defend this, and nor do I know why, I say, nah, fuck that. I'm not leaving. I'm going to get my shit rung up. So now there's 2 people trying to get her to ring out. Now, I look over at the self-checkout. They've only moved up like 2 people. There's still 6 people in line to go in there. I look the other direction. That line has only moved 2 people. I can't go join that line. I'm still doing better off than both of them.
And the rage bubbles up.
And I look around. There's 2 guys from Walmart loading ice into the ice machine, having a loud, cackly conversation just to add to my irritation. As I glance to my right, there's 3 women with walkie-talkies and bright, like yellow Walmart vests on, just sitting around doing nothing. And I decide to announce to Walmart that they need to run their place better. So I say, just like this, yo, Walmart, is this your first day in business? How much longer do I have to hold 3 items before you open up another goddamn checkout line? Is there a manager for this nightmare? Is anybody in charge of this nightmare? Now, the 20 people over in self-checkout look at me. The 10 people in my line are looking at me. The 10 people in the other line are looking at me. The 7 Walmart employees have all turned to look at me. And there's like a 3-second pause, as long as it took that stupid ass person to turn to just stare at me. No one says anything. I don't say anything. Again, is anybody in charge of this nightmare? And I hear I can help the next person over here. Nobody dares move. And I go, well, I guess that's me.
Well, you asked for it.
And I walk over there and she rings up my 3 things and she has the nerve to have an attitude, but not that much of an attitude because I'm waiting because I'm about to be like, don't have an attitude because I told y'all how to run your store.
I think she played it right. Like she's a
played
little
it perfect.
She's a little bit annoyed, but she's not
She
too
had it
annoyed because
right.
she knows that you're going to go off on
That's
her
right.
if she's too annoyed.
You're allowed to have whatever like shitty look on your face that you want to have, but don't you dare say a goddamn noise or breathe out some air. You just ring my shit up and let me out. Because
God forbid if you sigh.
That's right. I don't want a sigh or an eye roll from you, or I will go the fuck off again. So that's my road rage story inside of Walmart.
So I had a rage similar. I was late to work. I had a very important meeting in the afternoon that because I'm a procrastinator, I didn't read the material that I was supposed to read for this very high profile 3-hour meeting with like CEOs and my boss and my boss's boss and my boss's boss's boss.
That means he didn't reread it because he read it.
I didn't read it that day and I meant to read it during the morning hours. So I'm going to work. I'm already late, didn't have good sleep, and I'm on Route 70. If you know Cherry Hill in New Jersey, Route 70 in the morning, it's nothing but stop and go traffic, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, which is fine if you're not frustrated for being late to work, which I was. So that was just adding to my frustration. Before I even got to 70 to turn onto the road, the light was green and there were several cars in front of me and nobody's moving. I had my radio up loud, but apparently 7 fire trucks went by. So like when the light is green and no one's going, you rage.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm already raging because I'm late. I rage because there's fire trucks. Then I get on 70 and I'm raging all the way down 70 to get to 295 to go down to Woodcrest Station to take the train into Philadelphia. So Woodcrest Station is only about like 3 miles down 295. 295 is a major road. It's a 3-lane highway in 2 directions. But when I get to the exit for the train station, it's backed up all the way because they have been repaving the fucking entrance road to the train station for 3 fucking weeks. How long does it take to pave a road? I've seen it done overnight out here in front of my apartment. They did an entire major road, hundreds of cars per hour in rush hour. They did it in 2 days. 3 weeks it's taken. I've been waiting at that fucking exit for 3 weeks. So that adds extra to my stress.
No.
It takes 10 minutes to get off the exit. That usually takes 1 minute. You get to the light, you cross over, and you go into the train station. But no, I'm late. Fire trucks, traffic off the exit. I get finally
It's the best part, everybody.
to the parking lot. So I'm late, so there's no spaces in the parking lot. So I have to park out in the last fucking parking lot that's farthest away from the train. It
It's
takes
running.
like 7 minutes to walk to the fucking train.
Power walking.
I can see the train. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking really fast. I get there.
Practically running.
I practically running. I get there. I'm really mad about everything
Turnstile,
previously said.
Puts the ticket through.
Put the ticket through.
Up the stairs.
And I
runs up the
just
stairs.
had just gotten a new card and I expected it not to work. I expected everything to go wrong, but actually it went fine.
It worked.
I walk up the stairs and I hear the bell ringing for the doors closing.
Walks faster.
So I walk faster. I get out the thing and the doors close in my face. In my face. I raged.
Yeah.
Train is pulling away and I'm right next to it, like feeling the breeze on my shoulder. And I just pulled out my fingers, double middle fingers, and I screamed, "Fuck you," out loud
Like-
for a minute.
Like a crazy person.
An entire 60 seconds
all by himself.
over and over and over again. Fuck you.
Isn't it telling you the best part?
Then I heard people coming up and I sat down and I put my head in my hands and I went, "What did you just do?
'Cause
What is wrong
Remember,
with you?"
the next train is coming in 20 minutes.
No,
Like-
5 minutes. The next train is 5 minutes away. So I raged for no reason. I don't understand what happened. Like, why am I so angry
It's
about
all-
stuff?
It's all Nixon's fault.
Thanks, Obama.
Anyway.
Woo! All right. So
Summation is, if you've had days like that, just know that we feel you. But I'll tell you, the one thing that Scott and I have in common at the end of both of those experiences, when we got home,
we both drank a lot of whiskey.
at least enough to give us that whiskey grin.
Yep.
So
Just
to
freaking
sum
nice.
up real quick, Elijah Craig and Evan Williams, both under Heaven Hill. Both
Interesting men.
from the same area of Kentucky.
Yeah.
In the same distillery today.
But probably not either of them the father but both there at the beginning.
Absolutely. We give them credit. We sampled their wares. I picked up the Elijah Craig today that we're drinking for $35.99. And then Scott grabbed the Evan Williams small batch. What was that?
It was $22.
$22 for the Evan Williams small batch. Their flagship brand, I have to bring it up, is the Heaven Hill White Label, a sour mash bourbon with the green writing on it.
Doesn't it look like the bottle is like the Jim Beam bottle?
It looks kind of Jim Beamish, but
because these
the shape of the bottle is what he means.
Yeah, the shape of the bottle.
I picked it up today. Wasn't part of our plan for the podcast, but I said let me pick it up because it was priced at, not on sale, $11.73 for a fifth of whiskey.
That's just an astonishingly low number.
I can't get a drink in the whiskey lounge for $11.73.
Right, you can't get a cocktail in Philadelphia for $11.
Right, I had to buy it, and it was the first drink of the day for Scott and I. And I have to tell you, it's not dreadful.
It's not
It's
bad.
not great. It's not great. It's better than Jim Beam. Sorry. If you ask me which one I had to drink on the rocks forever, I'd choose that $11 bottle right there.
Also, if you go to a bar and you ask them what their well bourbon is, and they say Heaven Hill, get that. Because it's not bad. It's going to be like $5 a glass or whatever.
Especially if you're mixing it with ginger ale or, Coke or Pepsi. Like, just in my case, I have family members who consistently steal my whiskey. I'm going to keep this around just to direct them at the Heaven Hill bottle for $11.
It's deflection.
Well, yeah. Drink this. You can drink this. For a large size bundle of toilet paper, you can have a bottle of whiskey. If, it's like a divorce year and you got laid off and you're on welfare or unemployment, get the Heaven Hill.
Or if you miss the train or the line is too long at Walmart.
Get the Heaven Hill. It's a $12 bottle of whiskey. I mean, it still gets you drunk.
Yeah, fuck it.
We really appreciate you if you tuned in. And once again, find a nice spirit and have a drink on us or have a drink with us. And we'll see you next episode.
Later.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to check out our next episode, which is way better than this one.
Oh, yeah.
Also, follow and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/whiskeytangent. And follow us on Twitter at whiskeytangent. You can follow me personally at That Whiskey Guy. And follow Scott at Giant Cup of Awesome, spelled AWSUM, just to be annoying.
Hey!
You can email us any questions, comments, or love at whiskeytangent@gmail.com. And of course, you can find us always at our podcast website, whiskeytangent.podbean.com.